Late into the night, shivering against the freezing cold of a forgotten World War II Nazi bunker outside Turin, two young brothers are hunched over a massive, tangled sprawl of vacuum tube receivers. The single overhead bulb is just humming. For hours, they've been listening to the static, their dial tuned to a Soviet frequency that they monitor obsessively. And then, without warning, the static parts.
February 1961. Something genuinely terrible slides out of the noise. First, it's just a pulse, a real human pulse. It starts out slow, then goes quicker and quicker still, and then comes the breathing. It's ragged, wet, totally panicked breathing. It's that distinct, terrifying sound a person makes when they absolutely cannot get enough air. And threading right up through that horrible sound is a woman's voice speaking Russian. But she's speaking with this deliberate, doomed calm of someone who already knows no help is coming.
She says, "I can see a flame. I'm hot. I will re-enter. Isn't this dangerous?" And then the carrier wave drops. The reel-to-reel tape spool just keeps turning, hissing in the absolute silence. The brothers don't even move. Sitting in that freezing bunker, this chilling realization washes over them. Somewhere, very far above their heads, if what they just recorded is real, a human being has literally just burned alive in orbit. Now, to understand why this recording refused to just fade away for over 60 years, we have to look at the Judica-Cordiglia brothers themselves. Because these guys, they were not your average radio amateurs. Their father was a celebrated forensic pathologist. He literally taught his sons how to find the absolute smallest, most vital signals buried inside the loudest noise. They took that obsessive surgical precision, aimed it skyward, and converted this old Nazi pillbox into Torre Bert, one of Earth's most sensitive private listening stations. And their credibility was frankly undeniable. I mean, they tracked Sputnik's chirp. They actually beat NASA to the math on Soviet flight trajectories. They recorded Yuri Gagarin live, and the BBC came to them for the audio. Get this, when Apollo went to the moon, NASA itself confirmed the brothers authentically captured the astronauts' voices straight off the lunar uplink. That's how good they were. They were so undeniably accurate that the CIA actually flew analysts to Italy just to consult with them, because they were routinely handing Western intelligence transcripts that the spies hadn't even heard yet. So, the dread around these tapes only compounded because the recordings didn't stop. In November 1960, they captured an SOS in Morse code, but the signal was sliding downward via the Doppler effect, meaning a craft had somehow slipped Earth's gravity and was drifting outward, just falling into the dark. Then comes the February 1961 tape with the suffocating man. In May, they catch 3 cosmonauts frantically barking coordinates as their cabin pressure vanishes. And then, October 1961, a tumbling craft. The radio operator's pitch keeps climbing and climbing as centrifugal force literally pulls the blood the wrong way through his body. Conditions growing worse. Velocity is falling. The voice calls into a dead microphone. And then, it's half a prayer, half a curse. The world will never know about us. The carrier dies. The tape ends, and it leaves this haunting silence, the silence of a tragedy that the world officially refused to admit even happened. So why did a totally cynical Cold War-era world take these terrifying tapes at face value? Well, the answer is pretty simple, because the surrounding truth of the early Soviet space program was genuinely terrifying, and the world knew it. Look at the official Soviet photographs. Propaganda loved these big group portraits of the early cosmonauts. But if you tracked those exact photographs across the years, you'd notice something crazy. Men literally disappeared. A smiling face in a 1961 photo became an empty patch of wall by 1966. It was essentially a 1960s physical deepfake. A man named Grigory Nelyubov was quietly discharged and simply erased from existence by a retoucher's airbrush. And then there was Valentin Bondarenko. In March 1961, he's inside a high-oxygen pressure chamber on the ground, and a dropped alcohol swab starts a fire. He burned alive. The Soviets buried him, completely classified the incident, and scrubbed him from every official record. The world didn't even learn his name until 1986, a full 25 years later. It proved unequivocally that the Soviet state could hide anyone they wanted to. And when there's that much secrecy, rumors naturally rush in to fill the void. Take Vedimir Ilyushin, a top-tier Soviet test pilot. There was this persistent rumor that he, not Yuri Gagarin, was actually the first human in space. The story goes that he launched on April 7, 1961, crashed in China, and survived but was horribly injured.
The rumor suggests the Kremlin quietly substituted Gagarin 5 days later just because his landing was clean and camera-ready. Ilyushin lived another 40 years after that, never officially confirming it, but, never quite denying it either. But the entire mystery shifted drastically in 1991. The Soviet Union collapses, the seal finally cracks, and historians absolutely flood the newly opened state archives. They went in fully expecting to finally find the top-secret files on the lost cosmonauts. But what they found instead was a methodical debunking of the whole myth. You see, rockets do not care about ideology, and Soviet engineers kept incredibly honest, rigid manifests. There were no missing pre-Gagarin R-7 launches. American reconnaissance was photographing the launch pads constantly. A secret crewed launch would leave massive logistical fingerprints. The archives revealed every single dirty secret and embarrassment, including Bondarenko, but they showed 0 secret orbital deaths from 1960.
Actually, the most damning evidence wasn't what was missing from the archives. It was a linguistic autopsy of the tapes themselves. When linguists actually sat down with the recordings, they found something shocking. The woman on the tape spoke textbook Russian, like the exact stilted phrasebook-style language a foreign student learns. She never uses a call sign. She never names a ground controller. Real test pilots speak in this clipped, profanity-laced, jargon-heavy slang, but she asks, "Isn't this dangerous?" Honestly, it's a line that sounds perfectly written by a Hollywood screenwriter, not spoken by a highly trained test pilot burning up on re-entry.
And this frames the ultimate dilemma of Torre Bert. Were these 2 Italian teenagers somehow picking the most highly classified deaths of the 20th century right out of the air? Or were they just sitting in a freezing bunker, listening to the wind whistling through their headphones, and simply hearing exactly what they desperately wanted to hear?
Yet we can't tie it up into a perfect little bow, because the confirmed Soviet lies remain absolutely staggering. Take the Netherlands disaster in 1960. It incinerated over 100 engineers right on the launch pad, and the state straight up told the surviving families it was a plane crash. We absolutely know they hid massive, fatal tragedies. And the terrifying logic there is, if they hid that, we can never truly know everything they successfully buried.
The brothers never let the original tapes out of their hands to be independently authenticated against known Soviet signals. And the men who could tell us the absolute undeniable truth, they're dead. But the idea remains. It lingers like a ghost. Just the haunting image of a sealed steel capsule, decaying, inch by inch, out in the dark across the decades, still circling the Earth, with someone inside who never came home.
The world will never know about us.